Please, Chitty, don't do this. Not now. Not like this, whispered Amara Okafor, her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly as she stood in the doorway of their Okoye mansion. The 8-month pregnancy made it difficult to breathe, but the pain in her chest had nothing to do with the baby pressing against her lungs. Chitty Okafor didn't even turn around as he continued packing his Louis Vuitton suitcase, his movements deliberate and cold. His designer watch caught the afternoon light streaming through their bedroom window. A $200,000 Patek Philippe that represented everything he had become, a man who measured worth in zeros and treated people like disposable assets. I'm not doing anything to you, Amara. I'm simply making a choice. Adana needs me right now. She's carrying my child, and unlike you, she doesn't make everything so complicated. The words hit like physical blows. Amara grabbed the doorframe for support, her dark eyes filling with tears she refused to let fall. Adana Nwosu, his secretary, the woman who had smiled at her during company events while secretly destroying her marriage from within, the woman who was now 5 months pregnant and claiming the baby belonged to Lagos's most powerful real estate developer. Chitty, I'm your wife. I'm carrying your child. Our baby will be here in 4 weeks. How can you leave us for a woman you've known for less than a year? Chitty finally turned, and the coldness in his eyes made Amara's blood freeze. This was not the man she had married 6 years ago. This was not the ambitious young developer she had supported when he was building his first property with borrowed money. This was a stranger wearing her husband's face, transformed by wealth and power into something unrecognizable. You want to know the truth, Amara? I've been unhappy for years. You're boring, predictable. You think being a good wife means cooking meals and managing the household. Adana understands my world. She's sophisticated, ambitious, exciting. She doesn't cry every time I work late or question where I've been. Amara felt something break inside her chest, something that would never be whole again, but she refused to collapse. Not yet, not while he was watching with those contemptuous eyes. So that's it? 6 years of marriage. 6 years of standing by you, supporting every business decision, every risk you took. All meaningless because your secretary is exciting? Chitty zipped his suitcase with finality. Don't make yourself the victim here. You chose to be ordinary. Adana chose to be extraordinary. The Lagos elite respect her. She fits into my world in ways you never could. The mansion around them, all 12 bedrooms of marble and imported Italian furniture, suddenly felt like a beautiful prison. Amara had designed every room, chosen every detail, turned this house into a home while Chitty built his empire. Okafor Properties was now worth 47 billion naira, with development across Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. But none of that success would have been possible without the sacrifices she had made, sacrifices he had conveniently forgotten. What about our baby? Amara's voice broke slightly as she placed both hands on her belly. Your son. The ultrasound is on your desk. The one you were too busy to attend. Does he mean nothing to you? Chitty's jaw tightened, the only sign that her words had penetrated his armor of indifference. I'll provide financially. The child will have everything money can buy. But I won't pretend to be happy in a marriage that suffocates me. Adana's baby deserves a father who actually wants to be present. The cruelty of that statement, the casual way he dismissed their unborn son while elevating his mistress's child, was designed to wound. And it worked. Amara felt her knees weaken, but she forced herself to remain standing. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her crumble completely. You think Adana loves you? Amara asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Or does she love Chitty Okafor, the billionaire? The man who can buy her Hermes bags and take her to Paris on private jets? Have you ever considered what happens when the money stops flowing? Chitty laughed, a harsh sound without warmth. This is exactly why I'm leaving. Your jealousy, your bitterness. Adana believes in me. She supports my vision without questioning every decision. He picked up his suitcase and walked toward the door, brushing past Amara, as if she were merely an obstacle in his path. The scent of his cologne, Tom Ford Noir, lingered for a moment. The same cologne she had given him for his birthday 3 years ago, when they could still laugh together, when he still looked at her with something resembling affection. Chitty, please. Amara grabbed his arm, her pride finally dissolving into desperate panic. I'm begging you, don't leave while I'm pregnant. Wait until after the baby comes. At least give our son a chance to know his father. Chitty pulled his arm free, with barely controlled irritation. You're being dramatic. Women have babies alone all the time. You'll be fine. I'll have my lawyer send over papers for a financial arrangement. You and the child will be provided for. That's not what I'm asking for. Amara's voice rose, surprising both of them. I'm asking for you, for the man I married, for the father our son deserves. Money isn't enough. Then you're asking for something that no longer exists. The finality in his tone was absolute. Chitty Okafor walked down the curved staircase of their mansion, his footsteps echoing on imported marble, each step taking him further from the life they had built together. Amara followed, her pregnant body making the descent difficult, her hand gripping the gold-plated railing for support. In the foyer, their housekeeper, Blessing, stood frozen with fresh towels, her eyes wide with shock. The driver, Emmanuel, waited uncomfortably by the door, clearly aware of the domestic crisis unfolding. Both looked away, unable to witness their madam's humiliation. Chitty, Amara called one last time as he reached the door. When you realize the truth about Adana, when you discover what she really is, don't come back expecting forgiveness. Some doors once closed can never be reopened. Chitty paused for just a moment, his hand on the brass door handle. Then, without turning around, he walked out into the Lagos afternoon, leaving behind a pregnant wife, an unborn son, and 6 years of marriage that apparently meant nothing compared to the excitement of a secretary who knew exactly how to manipulate a powerful man's ego. Amara stood in the foyer, watching through the window as his Range Rover pulled away, taken with it every illusion she had held about love, loyalty, and the man she had chosen to build a life with. Blessing approached cautiously, her voice gentle. Madam, please sit down. The baby, you need to rest. But Amara couldn't move. She stood there, one hand on her belly, feeling their son kick as if protesting his father's abandonment. The mansion, with all its luxury and elegance, suddenly felt empty, a beautiful shell containing nothing but broken promises and shattered dreams. What Chitty didn't know, what he couldn't see through his arrogance and contempt, was that Amara Okafor was not the weak, ordinary woman he had dismissed. She was the daughter of Professor Samuel Adeyemi, one of Nigeria's most respected legal minds. She had her own master's degree in business administration, set aside to support her husband's ambitions. She had connections, intelligence, and resources he had forgotten existed because he had stopped seeing her as anything other than domestic background. And more importantly, Amara had something Adana Nwosu would never possess: integrity, patience, and the kind of quiet strength that doesn't break under pressure. It transforms into something far more dangerous. If you're drawn into the story of betrayal and hidden strength, stay with us. Because what Chitty Okafor is about to discover will prove that underestimating a pregnant wife is the most catastrophic mistake a man can make. Over the next 2 weeks, Amara Okafor did something unexpected. She stopped crying. The tears that flowed endlessly after Chitty's departure simply dried up, replaced by a crystalline clarity that came from accepting painful truth. Her husband was gone, seduced by a younger woman and his own inflated ego. But she was still here, still breathing, still carrying a child who deserved better than a father who could abandon him before birth. Blessing found her in the study one morning, surrounded by documents that Chitty had carelessly left behind in his rush to move into Adana's luxury apartment in Banana Island. Madam, you should be resting, Blessing said, concern evident in her voice. The doctor said you need to keep your blood pressure down. Amara looked up from a file labeled Okafor Properties, Meridian Heights Project, her dark eyes showing none of the devastation that had consumed her days earlier. I've rested enough, Blessing. Now it's time to pay attention. What Amara had discovered in Chitty's abandoned files was fascinating. Her husband, in his arrogance, had become careless. The Meridian Heights Project, his most ambitious development yet, a 2.8 billion naira luxury complex in Lekki, had irregularities that made her master's degree in business administration send up immediate red flags. Construction permits dated before official approvals. Payments to government officials disguised as consulting fees. Most damning of all, investor money being diverted to personal accounts, including regular transfers of 15 million naira monthly to an account belonging to one Adana Nwosu, starting 8 months ago, exactly when she claimed to have begun her relationship with Chidi. Amara's phone rang. It was her father, Professor Samuel Adeyemi, calling from his chambers at the Nigerian law school where he taught constitutional law. Amara, your mother is worried. You haven't been answering her calls. How are you managing? I'm pregnant and abandoned, Papa. How do you think I'm managing? There was a heavy silence on the other end. Professor Adeyemi had never liked Chidi Okafor, had warned his daughter that men who are too ambitious often sacrifice everything, including family, on the altar of success. But Amara had been in love, blind to the warning signs. Do you need me to speak with him? Your mother suggested I visit him at his office, remind him of his responsibilities. No, Papa, Amara said firmly, her voice carrying a new edge that surprised even herself. I need you to recommend a good corporate lawyer, someone who specializes in real estate fraud and financial investigations. Another pause, longer this time. Then her father's voice returned, sharp with professional interest. What have you found? Evidence that Chidi's empire might not be as legitimate as he pretends. Evidence that his secretary might be more than just a mistress. And evidence that abandoning me while pregnant might be the least of his legal problems. Professor Adeyemi made a sound that might have been approval. I'll send you 3 names. The best in Lagos. But Amara, be certain before you start down this path. Exposing your husband will be painful. The media will be merciless. He stopped being my husband when he walked out that door, Amara replied, her hand unconsciously moving to her belly where their son kicked steadily. Now, he's just a man who made the mistake of underestimating a woman he thought was ordinary. After ending the call, Amara returned to the documents, her mind processing information with the analytical precision she had once applied to her own abandoned career. Chidi had built Okafor properties on her family's initial investment, money her father had provided reluctantly. He had expanded using investor funds, promising returns that required increasingly aggressive and apparently illegal methods to deliver. And Adana Nwosu, the exciting, sophisticated secretary who understood his world so well, had been receiving substantial payments long before she announced her pregnancy. Payments that suggested her role in Chidi's life was far more calculated than a simple affair. Madam, Blessing interrupted her thoughts, bringing ginger tea that helped with the pregnancy nausea. There's someone at the gate. A woman. She says her name is Ngozi, and she needs to speak with you about Mr. Chidi. Amara's interest sharpened. Send her in. The woman who entered the study 10 minutes later was thin, nervous, her clothes suggesting someone who worked in service. She twisted her hands anxiously as she stood before Amara's desk, clearly uncomfortable in the opulent surroundings. Madam, I worked as cleaner at Okafor Properties head office. I was fired 3 weeks ago. Miss Adana, she said I was stealing, but I never stole anything. I have children. I needed that job. Amara gestured to a chair. Sit down, Ngozi. Tell me why you came here. Ngozi sat on the edge of the chair, still nervous. I heard in the staff quarters that Oga Chidi left you for Miss Adana, that she's pregnant with his baby. Madam, I came because that baby is not Oga's baby. The room went absolutely silent. Even Blessing, standing discreetly by the door, went completely still. What did you say? Amara's voice was calm, but her heart was racing. Miss Adana, she has a boyfriend, a man named Kenneth. He comes to the office late at night, when everyone is gone. I saw them many times when I was cleaning. They were intimate, madam. Very intimate. This was before she said she was pregnant. Amara leaned forward. Did you tell anyone? I tried to tell Oga Chidi's personal assistant, but Miss Adana found out. She accused me of stealing petty cash and had me fired. She said if I caused trouble, she would make sure I never worked in Lagos again. But madam, you're pregnant too. I have daughters. I couldn't stay quiet knowing what she's doing to you. Do you have any proof of this relationship? Any evidence? Ngozi reached into her worn handbag and pulled out a phone, old and cracked but functional. I took video one night. just to protect myself in case Miss Adana tried to blame me for something. I was scared, madam. She's very powerful in that office. She handed the phone to Amara with trembling hands. The video was grainy, shot from behind a partially open door, but the content was unmistakable. Adana and Nwosu in the Okafor Properties conference room, locked in an intimate embrace with a tall man who definitely was not Chidi Okafor. The timestamp showed a date 7 months ago, right around the time Adana would have conceived. Amara watched the video 3 times, her expression neutral, her mind calculating possibilities. Then she looked at Ngozi with something that might have been the first genuine smile she had managed in 2 weeks. Ngozi, how would you like your job back? And a promotion? I'm going to need someone I can trust working inside Okafor Properties. Someone who can watch and listen and report directly to me. Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. Madam, you would do this? After I come here with such terrible news? You didn't bring terrible news, Ngozi. You brought the truth. And the truth, painful as it might be, is always valuable. After Ngozi left, substantially better compensated and with instructions to maintain absolute secrecy, Amara sat alone in the study, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. The baby kicked steadily, as if sensing his mother's renewed energy. Chidi had left her for a woman carrying another man's child. He had destroyed their family, humiliated her publicly, dismissed her as ordinary and boring, all for a calculated fraud who saw him as nothing more than a wealthy target. The irony was almost poetic, but Amara wasn't interested in irony. She was interested in justice. And she was beginning to understand that the cold, corporate villain who had abandoned his pregnant wife was about to discover that the ordinary woman he dismissed possessed a dangerous combination of intelligence, resources, and motivation. Blessing approached cautiously. Madam, are you okay? Should I call the doctor? I'm better than okay, Blessing, Amara replied, her voice carrying a quiet strength that made even the loyal housekeeper take notice. I'm finally seeing clearly, and what I see is a path forward. The question now wasn't whether Chidi Okafor would regret abandoning his wife. The question was whether he would survive the consequences of underestimating her. 3 days after Ngozi's revelation, Amara Okafor sat in the downtown Lagos office of Bola Lawson, one of Nigeria's most feared corporate attorneys. Her father had arranged a meeting, and the woman across the mahogany desk had a reputation for destroying powerful men who thought they were untouchable. Mrs. Okafor, Bola said, reviewing the documents Amara had brought, "This is extraordinary. Your husband has been systematically defrauding investors, bribing government officials, and diverting company funds to personal accounts. The evidence here could send him to prison for 15 years. Amara placed her hands on her 8-month pregnant belly, feeling her son move beneath her palms. I don't want to send him to prison. I want something else. Bola raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you want? I want him to understand what it feels like to lose everything. His company, his reputation, his precious Adana. I want him to realize that the ordinary wife he abandoned was the only thing protecting him from his own destruction. Over the next hour, they crafted a strategy so precise, so devastating, that even Bola Lawson, who had seen countless revenge scenarios, was impressed. Amara had not only evidence of corporate fraud, she had proof of Adana's deception, contacts with Chidi's primary investors, and leverage that came from 6 years of being dismissed as mere background decoration, while actually understanding every aspect of his business. The plan would unfold in stages. First, expose Adana's infidelity and the true paternity of her child. Second, reveal the financial irregularities to key investors, triggering an investigation. Third, use Amara's position as legal wife to claim her rightful share of Okafor Properties, the 40% stake that existed on paper but Chidi had always controlled unilaterally. This will be public. Mrs. Okafor, Bola warned. The media will cover every detail. Your personal life will be exposed. My personal life is already destroyed, Amara replied calmly. My husband left me while 8 months pregnant for his secretary. There's no privacy left to protect. What I have now is truth, and truth is a weapon people like Chidi never expect ordinary women to use. That evening, the first domino fell. Amara's lawyer sent a formal letter to Chidi at his Banana Island apartment. notifying him of paternity fraud allegations against Adana Nwosu, complete with video evidence and a demand for DNA testing. The letter also requested a full audit of Okafor Properties' finances, citing irregularities discovered in documents he had abandoned at their marital home. Chitty's response came within 2 hours. A furious phone call that Amara answered with icy composure. "What the hell are you doing, Amara? Are you trying to destroy me out of spite?" "I'm not trying to destroy you, Chitty. I'm simply revealing the truth. You left me for a woman carrying another man's child. I thought you should know before you completely ruin your life for her. You're lying. Adana wouldn't. She's not like that. There's video evidence. Chitty, your own office security cameras. Your sophisticated, exciting secretary have been having an affair with a man named Kenneth for over a year. The baby she's carrying is his, not yours." The silence on the other end was profound. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Chitty asked, "Why are you doing this?" "Because you asked me for financial advice without realizing I actually had it. Because you called me ordinary without understanding that ordinary women pay attention. Because you abandoned your son before he was even born. Amara, please, if this gets out, the investors will panic. The whole company could collapse. Then you should have thought about that before you decided exciting was more important than loyal." She ended the call, her hand shaking slightly from adrenaline, but her resolve absolute. Across Lagos, in a luxury apartment that Chitty's money had purchased, she imagined him confronting Adana with the evidence, watching his perfect mistress scramble for explanations. The second domino fell the next morning. Chitty's 3 primary investors, all wealthy Igbo businessmen who valued family and loyalty above all else, received detailed reports of the financial irregularities, the bribes, the diverted funds, the falsified permits. Each irregularity was documented, sourced, and impossible to deny. By noon, emergency board meetings were being called. By evening, 2 investors had withdrawn their backing, demanding immediate return of funds. Okafor Properties' stock price, though not publicly traded, plummeted in private valuations. The empire Chitty had built was cracking at its foundation. But Amara wasn't finished. The third domino was personal. She arranged a meeting at a neutral location, a private room at the Eco Hotel, inviting both Chitty and Adana. Her lawyer insisted on being present, along with a DNA testing specialist and a notary public. When Chitty arrived, he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. His designer suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Adana came separately, her 5-month pregnant belly evident, her confident demeanor notably absent. "Thank you both for coming," Amara said, her own 8-month pregnancy making her movements slow, but her voice steady. "We're here to establish paternity for Miss Nwosu's baby before any further financial or legal arrangements are made."